Good day, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, people from all over the world. Welcome to attend the FINGEO Virtual Seminar. Today, we're very honored to have Dr. Yanpeng Jiang from East China Normal University. He works in the School of Urban Science and Urban and Regional Science in East China Normal University, and he got his PhD from Leeds University. Today, he's going to talk about the financialization of Chinese cities based on the a unique financial tool called Urban Investment Development Company. So, now I will leave the time for Yanpeng, but please, you can raise your questions via the chat books, or after the Yanpeng finish the talk. Then I would encourage you turn on your camera to raise your question by yourself. Okay, Yanpeng, please.
Okay, yeah. So first, thank you for Fenhua's comments, the warm comments, and then I thank all of you to attend this events. So, particularly thanks to the organizer and the host for Som, Singular, and Alex and Fenhua for your coordination. So without your efforts, this events cannot have been happened. So so first I would like to welcome all of you to join this event. So what topic I want to talk is talking about I just quote as financialization of Chinese cities and the role of the urban.
Share your screen, please, Yanpeng. Yeah.
Have not?
Not yet. No, not yet.
Oh,
please.
I think it's quite strange.
We can see. Cannot see your screen. Please share your screen.
It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. It works now.
Oh, okay. So the topic is about the topic is financialization of Chinese cities and the role of the UIDCs in China and the companies. So as you know, in the past 30 years, China experienced rapid urbanization in China. The urbanization rate has increased from 18.7 in 1978 to 2012 to 60.7% in 2020. How did China build the cities like this way, such speed in short time? So a lot of projects show this kind of the situation, and I try to explain and what's driving force behind such rapid urbanization in China. So you can say we just go through some cities in China. This is a maiden city in Tianjin. You can see this skyscrapers in China, in Tianjin. This is not kidding. When we were interviewed, when we interviewed some officials, planner in there, you can see we took some footage, figures about these buildings, about these issues. You can see it's crazy, such speed. You can see these buildings. We took this kind of in 2013 in Tianjin. And then we go to the west part of Shanghai, west part of China. We go to Chongqing as well. You can see loads of buildings were built there. So that's just to demonstrate how what's speed of urbanization in China. And this one as well, you can see skyscrapers in so-called financial districts, and you can see this buildings. And this one, it's same. Okay, so then we go to central part of China. This is Zhengzhou. This new Zhengzhou new district, east part. we call Zhengzhou East. So you can see this kind of planning issues. All of these buildings built from arable land and from how to say a man-made lake. Okay, you can see these buildings. Those buildings were built in such short time, less than 5 years. You know, my research team followed a close eye on this one, and then you can see here all of this area just built in such period on a short time, you know, and this one as well. We took a lot of buildings over there, photos, and then we go back to Hangzhou. You can see same in east part of China, you know, Zhejiang province. Okay, and those give you impression figures to think about it, what speed it is, or what scale of the mega urban project in China. And then we can go to west part of China, Guizhou and Guiyang as well. You know, this is a large mega urban project in China. It's kind of the subcenters in China. Okay, you can see these buildings, a lot of buildings. It's kind of, we call it Hong Kong style chopstick buildings. You know, you can see these empty buildings and empty street, quietly finished in those. And we go to the municipal cities, municipal levels. We can go to prefectural levels. We go to east part, west part, central part of China, and then we go to some small cities. You can see all those. It's kind of all of this and the west part of China, and the Kunming. The first one is Kunming. You can see, and the first one left is all those. This kind of mega urban project in China. How these cities financialized, what kinds of driving force behind this large scale urbanization in China. So this is what we're talking about. Okay. So first, I want to talking about introduction for all of you to broad and narrow definitions of financial definitions. And then second, we are talking about the financialization in a more specific sense. And then I want to talk how are China cities conceptualized today, and some cases and some concluding thoughts on financialization and its results, consequence as well. You know, so the background is, as I mentioned earlier, China has been undergoing a rapid urban development in China. You know, this kind of development driven by mega urban projects. In terms of driving force, it's kind of Chinese style financialization, Chinese style mega urban project, and the bodies, the state-owned companies built by government to prepare and to promote the project. And in the process, China has experienced a phenomenal rate of real estate development in the past 3 decades. You know, this kind of China experienced the production-led, we called industrial-led urbanized property development, and then focus on the property development. You know, in the first stage, how to say, the development rooms played very well in the process of the development, economic growth and urban growth. And the second stage, we moved to the urbanization-led economic growth. You know, in the process of urbanization, the mega urban project plays an important role in the different cities, particularly driven by Chinese style financialization. You know, okay, so let's go to definition of the financialization. You know, okay, so you can see the financialization has been defined and described in a varieties of ways. Financialization can be seen to operate at 3 levels. first as a new regime of accumulation, particularly in China, from arable land to the urban land, and the second as a form of cooperative governance that priorities return to shareholders. This kind of shareholders are concluded by government at the different levels, state-owned companies, bankers, and investors from private and public sectors. And the third levels we can see as an individual strategy held by citizens became financial actors, particularly in China. The citizens, the residents, particularly in the larger cities, in first-tier cities and the second-tier cities, joined the heated speculation urbanization process. Okay, so this we're talking about the definition. Okay, so under the broad definition, seeing the financialization as a new stage in the nature of the capitalism, once characterized by shareholders' power and the trumping of manufacturing and the trade by financial institutions and activities. More focus on the develop its understanding, but emphasizes that financialization is a version of late capitalism in which financial intermediaries play a pivotal role. These intermediaries are both institutional and instrumental. Financialization is here seen as a securitization of value and the trading on markets of these securities. It's not about the banks and the credits per se, but about the ways that goods of all kinds of securitized and converted into tradable products. This concludes the how can I say, properties. Without this further and the more specific definition, there's a little to differentiate financialization from our understanding of capitalism or indeed of neoliberal or capitalism. Okay, so so that's what we're talking about, the definition of the financialization here. So we use financialization in a more specific roles. So you can see financialization involved the investment of accumulated capital into the built environment. This tends to involve the creation of more complex investment vehicles, creating new forms of exchange value of what was once exclusive use value. For financialization to be a valid term, there need to be first intermediary, normally in the form of the credit and the debit instrument for urbanization or for jobbing urbanization, and secondly a resort to the market. And the financialization of the built environment is central to the whole argument about nature of financialization. Okay, so as we mentioned here, we're talking about this one issues. We particularly talking about the role of the state in the process of the capitalism of state. So important point to know is firstly in devastating itself of assets. Secondly, in creating special purpose vehicle, we call UIDCs, or urban and investment development companies, we call special purpose vehicles for funding, and the joint venture with the pension funds, which then co-own or manage social rented the housing. Thirdly, by having corporations devise investment strategy, in this process of the state, So we're talking about this role of state, the role of the institutional, and we're talking about state, then we focus on to the role of the institutional, private, and the individual's agent. So, properties is kind of the property markets are created and the performance. How are these Chinese cities conceptualized today and generally seen as being entrepreneurial, although not always clear what it means. So current consensus and the land is kind of around, how to say, land-based profit-driven growth correlation, so-called land-based growth correlation. So here we, I just taking more about the land-based profit-driven growth correlation. Okay, so next question we're talking about in this one in strange, So next question is in concept of financialization being used without the proper definition in Chinese context, in Chinese background. So, or to put it more bluntly, it is being used indiscriminately. So concept has been voiced over concept stretching in the context of the other concepts. For example, in the application of urban growth machine, urban regime theory to the European context. So what is concept stretching? A long-standing literature, mainly in political science, discussed, for instance, by Mossberger and Stokes 2001 in the context of the applied capability of the urban regime theory beyond the US. Concept stretching has some story, some history in Chinese background in regards, for instance, to the urban regime theory and the urban growth correlation. These are examples of a tendency to discuss development in China as a variance of concept by not to critical relevance of the concept in itself. So let's move now to financialization. Recent tendency to refer to the cities in terms of financialization, or as being financialized. What are the why? Because of this very high levels debt of local governments, and because of the debt is carried by companies often known as local financial institute, financial, or how to say, companies or UIDCs, those issues, So, we're talking about this kind of the companies. So let's go back to the financial platform, local government financial platform, or we called in our paper, we call it UIDCs, urban investment and development companies. The two terms, one is financial platform, platform. Another one is called 地方融资平台 platform, or UIDCs, we call Chengtou for short, are both used, although the form is more frequently found in English literature, language literature. What are these bodies, and what role do they play? Typically, they raised fund for specific urban and infrastructure projects initiated by government, particularly for the prefectural levels and the small city levels and the municipal levels. And the second one is prepared for land for construction. In the early stage, they prepared the land, particularly transform the rural land to urban land, and use the land as the collateral to get the bank loans from bank. And the third one is to supervise, coordinate, and then manage the construction process, particularly for the key state project. This is the most common pattern, but there are many variants. Local government financial platform has one basic function, that's the raising funds, primarily through the bank loans issued on the strengthening of the land and the collateral and the predictor on profit from the sales of the land lease and the property development, particularly for property speculation, and through the issues of bond, in China, loads of bond issues, bond in China. You can see, okay, so UIDC for short are hard to pin down. No one really knows how many there are. So you can see this this table. I just screenshot from my data. So no one really knows how many UIDCs there are. No one really knows how much debt they are responsible for. So UIDCs are very diverse. UIDC are very diverse. First, in larger cities, UIDCs, particularly in the tier 1 cities, for example, in Shanghai, in Beijing, and in Guangzhou, this kind of cities, UIDC tend to be complex, diversified general service company organized into families of firms and the holding company. Second, companies formed as local government financial platforms to find specific projects, and then expect to undertake a range of the downstream the function that progress projects. Third, some UIDCs end their life once project is finished, complete. Many diversified and expand. Fourth, reorganization and merged occurred frequently by among the different UIDCs. And the cities throughout China has their own UIDCs undertaking whatever function the local government assigned to them. So that's why in so many UIDCs, so it's complicated to know how many it is, how many they are, and how much data they are responsible for. It's a complicated process for UIDC, those issues. We talking about the how much debt, how much UIDC is. So now we're talking about the function. This function. Is there anything UIDC can't do? So we get detailed the role of this. So first, financial, for funding. Second one, developmental and entrepreneurial and imaginary functions. Carrying a project through the completion, and we're talking about the project, particularly famous one is Shanghai, is my case, funded to construct high-speed railway terminals and airport terminals and a new commercial district, raising fund, prepare for land for construction, supervising, coordinating and managing construction process, and managing and operating service, and it's kind of the funding infrastructure construction and operation, and then to raising funding for specific urban and infrastructure project in which the task they tend to be referred to as FPRs. So infrastructure construction, operation management, particularly for we're talking about the Shanghai's the city I studied and work here. Shanghai's metro system is run by Shanghai Center Investment. It's another UIDCs, and it is a subsidiary of Jiutan. And then for provision of utilities, Shanghai Chengtou Water Group, as part of Shanghai Chengtou Group, involved in investment, constructions, and the operation of urban water infrastructure and the real estate development. Shanghai Jiu's real estate companies is part of Shanghai Jiu's group. So undertakes the assembling of land reserves, land rural and the urban land to urban land, property construction and the leasing of old buildings and the new buildings, and the property management, including building on the bond. And then we're talking about new buildings. What they do is talking about the urban regeneration in city center. Shanghai Urban Investment Holdings Company, affiliate of the Shanghai Chengtou Group, has undertaken the urban regeneration task for Shanghai city government, the municipal government. Its flagship project was the reconstruction of prestigious Shinan mansions opposite Fuxing Park in central Shanghai. And then moved to territorial management for development rooms, new districts, and the conservation district run by UIDC management committee as territorial administration working alongside existing conventional territorial administration. Examples are Shenhong Business District and Lingang New Towns in Shanghai, and the Beijing Yizhuang New Towns. A range of these miscellaneous activities, a range of this one, such as management of sport events. For example, Jiushi Group run the prestigious sport events, including the F1 Grand Prix. So municipal government involved in our areas too. For example, in banking, for provide this in the early stage, the municipal government at different levels provides a credit guarantee for UIDC to get fund to get a bank loan from government. Okay, so as we list all of this function, UIDC has provide for government and for project. So it's amazing, how so now we can understand to some extent, why this open project and the role of UIDC played in the process of urbanization in China. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, so as we're talking about the function of this company's UIDCs, okay, I show you a specific case for Hongqiao project. What kind of Hongqiao project? Okay, this area covering about 26.6 square kilometers is a huge mega project. It's a project including the airport, high-speed railway, and the transport hub, and the new business district. So you can see in the further of the figures, pictures, you can see the airport area. This airport covered about 9.9 square meters, and you can middle part, you can see it's a high-speed train station. It's the largest high-speed railway station in China. Okay, so under the near the place, this area covered we call the core area of the Hongqiao business district, covering 4.7 square kilometers. The building area is about room space. It's about 4.6 million square meters in this buildings for office tower, for office, for tower office, for commercial buildings, for hotel, for luxury, for properties, for luxury hotel, for property buildings, something like this. Okay, so all of this areas project is covered about 26.6 buildings. Okay, so now I show you some full picture of this area. So you can see this convention center, National Convention Center, and on the left is kind of the relocation of villages, relocated villages for this property, and you can see this whole area. Okay, it still has a large area, empty buildings, empty land for this project. So this project finished in 2010 for transport centers. Then the municipal government focused on build the commercial districts. All of this project finished within 7 years. You can see what scale it is. It's invested about 300 billion yuan in China. Okay, it's equivalent 34 40 billion pounds in this area for these buildings, for not just buildings, for facilities, transport facilities, the road and this gas station, something like this, not for these buildings. Okay, these buildings invested by private companies, state-owned companies. All of these facilities invested by Shenghong UID, Shenghong UIDCs. Okay, Shenghong company as a UIDCs. Okay, and you know, Lingan project the same as well. You know, so let's talking about this kind of the UIDCs. You know, in Hongqiao, in this project, you can say just mention the first three other three you have just referred to early, and the largest investor in Hongqiao. So first one is the Shanghai Jiushi Group, Shanghai Airport Authorities, and municipal land reserve centers for, you know, for this capitalized this Shenghong company. And then Shanghai Changning Group and Shanghai Hongqiao Business District Energy Investment Development, and another organization of facilitate to Shenghong company, and the Shanghai Hongqiao Business District Investment Property companies involved in provision of the infrastructure facilities and Hongqiao area of 26.6 square kilometers, cost about 300 billion yuan in this project. Okay, and then you can see about this Shanghai electronic power companies and the Beijing Shanghai High Speed Railway corporations. To all of these companies involved with Shenghong to build, to provide this kind of the infrastructure facilities to manage it, to promote it, this project. Okay, so you can see Shenghong this project. Okay, so you can see Shenghong is a representative of examples of UIDC are owned by local government at a various different level. Okay, so who guaranteed Shenghong and is that problem? You know, so it, but you know, it, yes, it's invested huge, but it's a big black hole of the debt as well. So Shenghong has problem, has some how to mend. Yeah, even it's played very well, but still has a lot of problem. You can say Shenghong is that problem. So Shenghong company capitalized by three Shanghai city corporations, Jiushi and the Shanghai Airport and authorities, and municipal land reserved center for this one. You know, along with Sibo Group, UIDC responsible for 2010 Shanghai World Expo was merged into Shanghai Real Estate Group. Who guaranteed the debt? UIDC assumed that debt covered by local government in early stage, and the local government and the central government will foot the bill. But situation has changed. You know, situation has changed now. You know, the 2008 4 trillion yuan stimulus package prepared were poured in this infrastructure project. So UIDC issued bonds to raise, particularly for Shenghong as well, raise fund leading to unregulated borrowing. And the central government respond to 2014, you know, facilitating but controlling the local government access to fund by allowing them to issue the bond, but only with high levels of permission, you know, and go to the permission pool or bond pool to allow. And you know, UIDC not allowed to borrow the from banks, must swap their central bond for municipal bonds or green bonds. You know, now they cannot to get funding from shadow banking. You know, that were forbidden by central government. And the UIDC must take on the private partner and to become the PPPs. You know, basic aims to stop local government to from accruing debt by UIDCs, but largely ineffective, particularly in some small cities and in large corporations. Total local government debt, you know, estimated at 18.4 trillion yuan in December 2018, of the book local government debt around 40 trillion yuan. So borrowing to restart growth after pandemic, particularly for last year and this year, wholesale relaxation of central government limits on amount of bonds that the provisional governments can issue. For example, the Guangdong province Guangdong province and Shanghai as well successfully issued the largest quantity of bonds ever in May in 2020. So you can say what's a consequence it caused. So we talking about the UIDC. So we definitely we come to here. So first is talking about for what its funding role, plus the developmental, entrepreneurial, and the managerial. First, we can talking about the state developmentalism as an umbrella concept. You can say in addition to this, UIDC, we have argued everywhere well, that they are best seen as a part of state cooperative organism. But rather than go into this here, I want to relate to UIDC to conceptual construction, state developmentalism. Issued or built by a lot of scholars, for example, Fulong Wu, and first state developmentalism, and as a fitting umbrella concept. State developmentalism, state set up the plans and executes them through the market. State entrepreneurialism, according to Wu, use the market instrument make available through institutional innovation to extend the state position into the market share and maintain the state power rather than being replaced by market power. State power is reinforced by its use of market instruments, taking state entrepreneurialism 2 steps further forward. Second, I think, state entrepreneurial strategy and the policy and the local level. State entrepreneurialism manifests itself in entrepreneurial strategy and the policy at the local level. This strategy and the policy from different levels, from prefectural and the municipal and sometimes district governments. They are what make urban governance entrepreneurial in 2 specific ways. First, through speculative property development, and the second one, particularly for competitive urban growth or competitive urban place promotion, particularly for the in terms of regional competition. It has triggered competitive urban growth confronted or faced by a local government. And the third one, I want to say, UIDC enabling the local state to pursue entrepreneur strategy and the policy. UIDC are the instrument that enable the local state to pursue entrepreneur strategy and the policies. So this kind of the development cooperation, or UIDC, is the investment arms of the government. So this one, what are we talking about? The UIDCs. Okay, so let's move to the concluding remarks on this Chinese version of financialization. So I leave a question here. I want to all of us can further to further to answer to raise this question, to think about this question. So question is twofold. So should we call these companies UIDCs and LG FPS, or okay, and then do they represent a Chinese version of financialization because it's a little bit different compared to the financialization in the Western countries, in the US, in Western Europe, and in Japan. And are this UIDC instrument of financialization? From my point of view, I think UIDC definitely as an instrument of financialization. So I just want to leave a question to all of you, so you can say, most case, the term UIDC better reflect a function undertake. And conversely, LGVF as a term obscured the way in which local government operate to build infrastructure and the megawatt project. However, we should be aware that UIDC is a kind of term that covers a number of different type of institutions, not in themselves, in the sense that they are merely borrowing on the market. They are not actually involved in the marketization of assets. This for us precludes the idea that UIDC in themselves agent of financialization. That's I think I want to stop here. I leave these questions to all of us. So
thank you very much, Yanpeng.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
just
Yanpeng.
43 minutes. Okay. So thank you very much. Many thanks for your listening. Okay. I stop here. I leave the open floor to Fenghua.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Yanpeng. Thanks for giving a really insightful presentation. Provide a new lens to look at the rapid urbanization in China and highlighting the role of UIDCs. So we've got quite many questions indeed. So now we've got 7 questions from 5 people, according to my.
Okay.
So I will let the people raise the question by themselves. So Derek, could you please combine 2 questions together?
Thank you, Fenghua, and thank you, Yanpeng, for a great presentation. My question is about these companies and whether you have information or you have studied or are planning to study the intermediaries, all kinds of advisors who work on or for these companies, financial, legal advisors, and other consultants. Another question is about the tax treatment of these companies and their activities, and whether they involve any use of offshore finance. So these couple of questions that could help also understand better the extent and the modes and the implications of financialization in this case. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks, Derek. Please, Yanpeng, since we have quite many questions, so I think the answers should be short and brief. Give some.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so one by one, or you put together?
I think you just one by one, but quick answers. Okay. If we have, because we have time limit very.
Okay. I do a little bit of research about UIDC and financialization. Just Fenghua has organized a special issue in terms of regional study. I talking about the financial. So I use the Chinese version of financialization in China. So I prefer to think about this kinds of events or this kinds of the function of UIDCs is kinds of the financial instrument in China, particularly for UIDCs. Even in terms of financial, we use quotas of financialization of cities. I prefer to these cities, okay, to UIDCs. I prefer to instrument, okay. So I just quickly go through. Hi, Fenghua. So I just go through the questions of this dialogue.
No,
Yeah?
no worry. I'll ask them to raise question by themselves because we have.
Okay.
I think it's a better
Okay.
way to do.
Yeah.
So Michael, please, Michael, are you there? Michael?
There is. I hope we can next time we have meet to meet, face to face to talk. Okay. I read a lot of your paper. You know.
Michael, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Also, thanks for the paper. So since these UIDCs are the entrepreneurial arm of city development, I wonder how a failure of them would look like. So, or do you put it more friendly, how do you distinguish a successful UIDC from an unsuccessful one? Thank you.
Okay, you know, as I mentioned in the early stage of this presentation, you can say, okay, how can I answer this question? You know, success or failure, it depends who. You know, it depends who. For government, okay, this definitely for government, it's definitely success because you can say large mega urban project in China, what scale it is promoted. It's promoted urban development in China. The UIDC has played a fantastic role for raise funding, for managing, for coordinating for government. You know, they just played a kind of this kind of job for government. So definitely, but from our side, it has triggered a lot of problem as well. For example, government debt, particularly in the early stage. You know, yeah. So I think to some extent, it's success for government. You know, they finish the task issued by government, and they get achieved, particularly for economic achievement for local government, and then political achievement for local officials or leaders. So from this perspective, I think it's success. I hope I answer your question.
Thank you. So we have the survey from Tom Sigler. Tom, please. Yeah, I'll
just ask. I'll combine my two questions. Yeah, it's really just about the territory of each UIDC. So, is there a discrete territory, or can they be territorial expansionist? And for example, can a Shanghai-based UIDC go to other cities to promote projects and you know, grow their business?
Okay. You know, first, this UIDC is a territorial based, definitely. You know, okay, because this UIDC is specific, have specific project, specific purpose for local government. You know, so at the early stage, this UIDC is focused on the specific project, specific purpose for local government. You know, so once, as I mentioned, in my one paper published in UIDCs, in the final stage, once the project finished, some UIDCs merged or end of life or merged in other companies, state-owned companies. We call the comparative function companies. So once this UIDC finishes this project, they can go beyond these territories. For example, they go our cities for property development, but not for the specific project, so-called strategic project. So that's fine. It's a marketplace.
Great, thank you.
I hope I answer your question.
Yeah. Okay, we have another 3 questions.
Long time no say.
So, Xingyi, please, are you there? Wei Xingyi, are you there? Great.
Hi.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, it's an excellent presentation. And my question is about its internal enterprises in financialization. How about the guaranteeing from the government and the financial transfer they receive in their financialization process? And from my knowledge, when they go abroad, they build like BVI structures and receive some credit enhancement from the government enterprises. How like this kind of, have you like discovered how these things helps the financialization process?
Okay, so the UIDC played a different function at different stage of project, and not just a different stage of project and a different stage of time. You know, before the 2014, you know, UIDC definitely get the credit guaranteed from government. Okay, so the government can issue the guarantee letter to bank to guarantee the debt will be covered by local government. So due to the boom of the local government debt, the central government issued the restriction policy to prohibit the UIDC to borrow the money and to hidden debt for government. So then the local government are not allowed to issue this kinds of the guarantee letters for them. So but and then they can use the land to capital. And then second one, after the 2014, the government at different levels will provide some kinds of green bond priorities for this kind of UIDC, particularly those UIDC focus on the so-called strategy project for Shanghai, for Hongqiao project. They still provide some green bond priorities. They will be first. They will be prioritized to put in the bond pools in Shanghai and other place as well. So that can provide this kind of the conditions, this advantages for UIDCs to form, to maintain, to continue there's a so-called financialization process. I hope I answered that question. Okay.
Thank you, Yanpeng. Okay. We after the last two questions, if we have more time, we can continue our conversation. The next one from Eric. Eric, are you there? Eric.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's very inspiring presentation, I would say. I just have one question. So it sounds like the financial source of these UIDCs could be like, say, informal or even, I mean, illegal sometimes because it's related to shadow banks or something. So if so, how these actors break through the regulations, if there's any, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. And how it should become the hands of the state entrepreneurism. Thank you.
Okay, so first, one thing should be clear. It's not illegal. It's illegal. You know, UIDC is illegal in China. You know? Okay, so you know, anyway, it depends. You know, anyway, you know, the central government have policy restriction for these companies, but you know, okay, it depends. You know, UIDC can get some funding from, you know, we call the how to say, get funding from bank, from our place, definitely around the central government policy restriction. So if you from that perspective, I think so, you're right, you know, to some extent. Okay, so okay, so how could I get the money? You know, I think, you know, they use government, local government use land, particularly in many places, in many cities, they have kinds of the land reserved center. They transfer the rural land to urban land, you know, or requisition to the rural land to urban land. And this kind of land can directly go to land reserve center. Okay, land reserved center is kind of state-owned company to de facto, you know, they provide this kind of land at the first stage for UIDC, and UIDC use this land to get the bank loans, and then they can issue the issued now at this moment they can issue the bond, green bond, particularly all of this happened based on the condition is that it's open so-called urban speculation and the property speculation. It kind of expectation of rising value of land, rising value of the properties, particularly in larger cities. So that's the main instrument for the success for UIDC to get funding to be financialized. That's my point. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, we have the last question because of time limit. So we have Robert. Are you there?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks a lot for your talk. That was really insightful. I was wondering to what extent UIDCs or other local government vehicles, in how far they are a form of mitigating or removing risk, political risk and economic risk from local governments. So this has changed quite a bit over the past month. I think obviously that the kind of political checks that are imposed on local governments when it comes to financing have been increased. So maybe also how has that changed over time? So comment on that would be great. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. It's a good question. You know, all of you have raised this good question. You know, this question is, definitely, as I mentioned, how to maintain this kind of maintain the sustainability of UIDCs, particularly loads of many UIDCs faced a huge debt pressure. You know, how to maintain this progress, how to maintain the sustainability of UIDCs in terms of funding. That's a big problem. So that is the economic risk. In terms of these issues, I do some research about UIDC and the Zhengtao and the Shanghai Dichang, this kind of the UIDC in Shanghai, in Anhui, in Jiangsu, in Zhejiang as well. We find this kind of UIDC in larger cities should be fine, as the rising at this moment, at this stage, still the rising value of the land and properties can guarantee this kind of the expectation. So the bank still can provide this kind of funding for them, and particularly the bond issues, green bond, the bond, they can get funding from bond, But for small cities, for lower level cities, it will be a big problem for these UIDCs. And as well, the bankruptcy, the central government has issued the bankruptcy policy for UIDCs. So that's another reason for we think I see you raise a good question. The local government, particularly for local leaders, faced the political risk once the UIDCs cannot maintain the sustainability in terms of that. That's a big problem for local leaders as well for local government. So I hope I answer your question. Okay.
Thank you, Yanpeng. Because I missed one question. So Rolf, are you there? I'm sorry, I missed your question. Could you? Yeah.
Hello,
please.
everybody.
Hello.
Actually,
yeah.
when China started the industrialization, there was a lot of help from Japan financing projects. So actually, I wonder if still, for example, the Development Bank of Japan, who has a consulting business in Beijing, is also investing in these UIDC projects. Have you anything observed?
Thank you, Doc. Yanpeng.
Okay.
Yeah. Quick answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do some research in Anhui and Shanghai and in Zhejiang. So I observed some UIDCs in the small cities, in the larger cities. In Shanghai case, the UIDCs has merged into Shanghai Dichang due to the Shanghai municipal government want to maintain the sustainability. In other words, it reduced the the debt burden for UIDCs. You know, for small cities, I did a paper in the EPC with Powell. We researched, we conducted interviewed with head and some officials with UIDC small companies, lower levels. So it's faced huge pressure, economic pressure and debt pressure for them. So that's a big problem. So it's kind of how to say, now the government tried to put those UIDC companies into different categories, and then think about the different way to deal with these debt issues. I think that's
okay. Thank you, Yanpeng. Due to the time limit, we are going to close the room soon. But before we leave, I would like to thank Yanpeng and all the people who attended today's event. Thanks very much, and special thanks to the ISA China division, which provide special support for our event. And our next seminar will be after 2 weeks. Will be moderated by Tom Sigler, my colleague from Queensland University in Australia, and the speaker will be Michael Zhu from Griffith University. Also, we have if you have time, I would like to join us in another social activity. Please feel free to click the link in the chat box. So today, thank you very much again. We are close the room. We'll talk in another place later. Okay.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
See you next time.
Bye bye. Thank you so far.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom Sigler. Bye.